So welcome everyone. We can skip to the next page, which is the agenda. In fact, the next page, which is the agenda, sorry, the next page.
I see it on my screen, 90 agenda. Do you see it?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No? That's weird.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, go back one. Yes. Okay, so before we get started with the main subject of the meeting, maybe we can quickly do a quick roundtable of the leadership team, so that everybody sees gets familiar with the faces of the Partisia Blockchain Foundation. Not only Kurt, Brian, Peter, and myself, but also the admin team of the node operator admin team. So I'll just start. Hi, everyone. I am Jennifer DeBroy. So I joined the Partisia Blockchain Foundation at the beginning of the year. I'm the person who will be doing most of the communication for Partisia Blockchain from now on, and working with different investors, just trying to help disseminate information, create content, video content, text content, work with getting more info about our exciting projects into the press. So good to have you on the call and nice to meet you.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Brian. I'm responsible for more of the application layer for Partisia Blockchain Foundation. So as mainnet's coming to market, I sort of work with some of the developers on the team to help with application integration, like so far the Chrome wallet extension, the block explorer, which is mpcexplorer.com. So if you have any specific application questions, I'm a good point of contact. And I guess I'll pass it off to Peter.
I'm the CTO of this blockchain offering that we're doing. I've been working for Partisia for more than 5 years now, and I've been heavily integrated into building decentralized systems and working with MPC and doing all of that. I know all the nitty-gritty details of some of the smart contracts, which probably is too low-level detail for this call, but it is the foundation of what we're going to talk about today. So basically, I've overseen most of the implementation effort that we've been doing. Kurt?
Yes, my name is Kurt Nielsen, and I'm one of the co-founders. I've been working with MPC and blockchain for quite some time. With Partisia, one of the co-founders of Partisia as well, and Sepia also, which is the two companies that is providing the tech stack for the project. And I will be speaking in a few minutes about these slides. Who is next? Yes.
Yeah, Kurt, do you want me to pass the slide sharing over to you?
Yes, please do that.
Okay, well, 1 second. I'll do that. Okay, yeah, you should be able to take over now.
All righty. Can you see my screen here? It works?
Yes. We're on the node operation page.
Yep, perfect.
Absolutely, perfect. Excellent. Yes, so I'm just going to kick off this AMA with a short introduction of the network with a focus on the node operation economy. And then there's a number of additional slides, and you can have them after the call, so you can dive into this and if we don't get around all your questions. So just start with a quick, see if I can put you over here at the top. That doesn't work. So a quick overview of the status of the project. So there's a number of features that we bring into this. I will come back to this in more details. We think we also did the first benchmark, and I will end the talk with a short presentation of that. I think we have a nice position in the market, but let's get back to that. So we started this foundation behind Partisia Blockchain in October 20, and has raised 42.5 million today. We launched we did a soft launch of the net in December. We are open sourcing it in a couple of days. We're starting a bug bounty campaign at the same time. Then we are planning to launch anytime soon in spring this year. And we also have the first projects building on the network. Some of them are highly confidential, in fact, so we that you will learn a lot more about in the future. So let's dive into this. If I can get this to work. Yeah, so this is the economy as such, where we have the foundation is minting tokens that is bought by token holders that can use these tokens to stake, and then you run a node and you get actually paid in liquid coins. So this is the decoupled token economy, where you have the means of payment as is external coins, and the entry barriers to enter this market is the Partisia, is the MPC coin or token. So this is where all the values that is created in a network is captured by the MPC token. So you get all the values as if MPC token was the means of payment, and you get this decoupling between the store value and means of payment at the same time, as well as a new approach to do interoperability and align the incentives in doing so. Then there's also, I will come back to that, there's opportunities to bring in people who's not running nodes. And also we have introduced some mini nodes. So there's a number of things that you can do in the network that is not as critical as running a node, but it's still important. I'll come back to that later. So that's the economy. There is work to do for all. There is utility for all, and we have this what we think a nice decoupling of the token economy. So the platform is what we call a layer 1+2. So we have an efficient layer 1. Come back to that with fast track finalization, and sharding. It's a scalable layer 1. Then we have the offering of the privacy preserving computation. We have the native bridging of external coins, and we are looking into developing this as a market for trust. We'll probably also get back to discussing that, as well as the jurisdiction management. So this stack pretty much looks like any blockchain, except that you have two different smart contracts. So you have smart contracts that we all know for public coordination of information, but then we also have smart contracts for orchestrating the privacy preserving computation, which is the most innovative part of the network. So if we look at this from the outside, there's pretty much two levels of services. There's a basic blockchain, call that the layer 1, and then we have the Oracle or the specialized function like CK, zero knowledge computation, and Oracle functions, which is run by subsets of nodes. And so this is kind of 3 classes of jobs. So it's sort of relates to the 3 different Baker or 3 different node operators. The Baker nodes running the basic blockchain, the CK nodes running zero knowledge computation and MPC, and the Oracle nodes who's running bridges as well as for tokens as well as for data. So let's dive into that. So the 3 nodes, the Baker nodes, the CK nodes, and the Oracle nodes, there are different required stakes for running these, and different types of revenue streams that comes with this. But that is more clear when we dive into the different roles. So let's just look at these 3 different roles that you can have as a node operator. The first one is a Baker node. So this is all about the validation, the basic blockchain functionality. So it's about validating the transaction. It's about creating the blocks. It's about floating the information in the peer-to-peer network. It's about executing the transactions. And it's also about selecting the smaller oracles that we'll come back to when we talk about CK nodes and Oracle nodes. So this is where we have the basic security level, where all of the network is in play. So we have a number of things there, and maybe we can come back to how we actually constructed this with proof of validation, proof of verification, the POV, which is a new thing. So it's something that is unique for you as a node operator. You actually have a proof that you actually did verify the transactions. And then it's all about propagating this and creating the 2/3 of all the votes, which is in the first place is giving us a proof of justification. And then we move to the next block, we get another proof of justification, which is also functioning as a proof of finalization for the previous block. So we also have what is called fast finalization. And all of this does not interfere with the sharding, which we have down here. So we have a parallelization of the entire basic layer 1 that can scale to any level of any number of shards. So that's the Baker job. Then we have the more specialized, the two more specialized job, which is one is the zero knowledge computation. So this is about running the basic, most typically the MPC protocols, which is what is pictured here. So MPC is all about, you can talk about offline phase and an online phase. So something about making this run fast, you need to produce basically kind of a fuel, a pre-processing or triple that goes into the computation and make them run faster. And this is kind of something that we'll come back to later as well. So this is something that is decoupled the security model for the online phase. So you can basically have anyone running or producing these triple. So this is where we can distribute a lot of work between anyone and put everyone to work in this network. Then we have basically a way of orchestrating these rather complicated computations and make sure that you use the right protocol for the right jobs, etc. Tons of things to talk about here. But anyway, this is a CK job. This is where you run computation for people using the network and you're running on private data. So there's a lot of trust in this. But it's running in groups of nodes. So no single point of trust, of course, and there's certain thresholds built into this. Anyway, this was the CK job, and the last one is the Oracle nodes, which is also a subset of nodes that is selected out to run things like a bridge. So this bridge is the basic bring your own coin. So what we're doing here is to basically facilitating external coin as means of payment on the Partisia blockchain. It's also kind of a half of a bridge. So we also have full bridges. So we basically put together two of these BYOC, and then you have a bridge to any two external network. So we have the same mechanics working for these bridges. What is happening here is that we have the Baker nodes, the highest level of security, selecting a subset of nodes to run this bridge. And then the bridge is run in epochs. And we have the nodes running the bridges. They are basically staking in order to secure the values moved from A to B in the bridge. And this is basically a mirroring of states across blockchains. So it's relatively easy to find out if everything was done correctly. And that you can do after an epoch, or during an epoch, but after an epoch, you basically have the opportunity to run a dispute if anything went wrong. And you can do that for the next epoch. In the meantime, you have a new group of nodes that is running the next epoch. So it's just continuously running, and you have these stakes locked in, and you get paid for securing the values in these bridges. So this is where you really put your tokens to work and get paid for doing that. So the blockchain we have in the first version of blockchain, we put out this price vector. Feel free to think hard about these fees and come back with comments on this. This is basically something that will come back to that the network decides what are the price vector that makes this network competitive. Anyway, the fees that we are choosing here provide something like, if I can move this down here, is basically translates into these type of price examples. So if you look at a simple blockchain transaction with these prices, it's around 1 US cent for doing that. If we look at the at another example where we use the CK nodes to run a sealed bid second price option, I think it is, with 20 participants, it's around 2.5 USD in fees. If we run if we want use the bridges, if we use a BYOC, moving money into the Partisia blockchain, let's say we move 100 USD, it's a fee of 0.1 USD. And if we use a bridge to move across two external networks, it's say it's 1,000 USD. It's the fees is 10 USD. Then you can start thinking about the number of transactions on the network, and you can compute some potential revenue, etc. For this. So that's kind of the initial prices on the network. So if we look at this from a market perspective and look at the basic blockchain as well as the specialized CK and Oracle services, starting with the basic blockchain. So this is something that is a service that is provided as a collective thing from the network, and the network basically make a decision about what are these prices. So there is built-in decentralized governance for doing exactly that. There's no what is known as a mempool market. So this is where you have congestion in the system, and then you'd use a pricing market in order to prioritize transactions, which one should go in first in a block. If there is transaction, we can make, with a single transaction, we can spin up a new shard and remove the congestion. So that's what you get with sharding. You can actually have a stable fixed prices for longer periods of time. It makes it possible for people to actually plan ahead and know what the cost is to build on the blockchain. This does not mean that we cannot introduce competition among the nodes, and we have developed a peer-to-peer relative performance scheme, which is going to reward propagation and connectivity. We're not introducing this from the beginning. This is something that comes later. We need more activities, more nodes in the network. So that's the basic blockchain. If you look at the CK and Oracle services, this is where we select a small subset of nodes. So here you can actually facilitate competition in the market for taking these jobs among the larger pool of available nodes. In the beginning, there's no, it's a very simple market. So we simply have that all nodes have the same probability to get the job. The only requirement is that you actually do have available stakes. So if your stakes might be locked up in a bridge in a dispute period, you might not be able to be selected for the next period. Otherwise, you'll have the chance to be selected and get these jobs. This is something that we will improve on as we move forward. So this is where we are going to establish the market for trust. This is also where we are going to work with jurisdiction management. So here we are having a model where we can go in and we can improve on the selection criteria. We can improve of the balancing of trust and price, and reward people that is the most, or reward the nodes that are the most trusted nodes in the network, hence establishing a market for trust. All right, so I'm just running quickly through these slides. So there's we believe that there's a lot of potential need for this network that will create a lot of revenue. So, but of course, it kind of depends on how many nodes is going to sign up for the network, how much is for the individual nodes. So we are, as a foundation, we have carved out 10% of the total token holding for bootstrapping, up to 10% for bootstrapping the node operation. We're not allowed, since we're doing this bring your own coin, we worked a lot with what is called FINMA, the regulators, the financial regulators in Switzerland, in order to get approval for this. I've never seen this before, so that it took a few more rounds with lawyers to get this in place. That does not prevent us from subsidizing the network. We just have to do it in this arm's length fashion, and it's not like a block reward as such, but we do it very systematically, and we are still working on the actual distribution principle for doing exactly that, which is going to reward time, it's going to reward staked tokens, it's going to reward activities and your reputation in the network. However, for the first part, for the initial ecosystem node reward, the pre-mainnet reward, which is the period that we are in right now, we have settled the first model for rewards, and that is basically 1% of your staked MPC token per month paid out in MPC tokens, adjusted for your relative performance. So if you don't want to read this stuff, you can look at the slides afterwards. It's you'll just look at the example here. So this is node Y. It's having a 400,000 MPC token staked. It has produced 10,000 blocks. If you look at across all the block producers, the average is 9,000 blocks. So we are adjusting the reward a bit up. So at the end, this node is going to receive 2,778 MPC token per month. So that's the pre-mainnet reward. Post-mainnet, it's still in work in progress. We are aiming for a 10-year schedule, so everyone knows what is ahead. And when we have that, that will of course be announced, and we can have that will be announced later, basically. That is the subsidies from the foundation to the operation of nodes in the network. So I mentioned in the beginning, there are utility for all. So let's just dive a little bit into this. As I mentioned before, there was a lot of work on getting the regulation in place for this project, especially the BYOC, which is also a super important thing, because this is aligning us with other networks. Imagine that we are providing privacy to all blockchains, and whenever we collaborate with a blockchain, we end up promoting that partner's token through the BYOC. So we believe that this is a very nice approach for the go-to-market for interoperability. Anyway, here we are talking about people who bought MPC tokens and who is not running a node per se. We can still do a lot of things. You can do any type of staking. The MPC token is freely tradable. So what we are doing, what we have been looking into, is basically what we call mini nodes of the tree roads. The CK nodes is, as I mentioned earlier, the pre-processing material. That is a straightforward thing for us to do, to have everyone producing pre-processing material. There's also a job in working on storage for the pre-processing material, as well as other things. So imagine in the long run, I believe we are having a network that is really going to facilitate digital agents. So you have your online private agent ready online, automatically activating whatever transaction needed on the network, and you can have that, and you can have people on the network with that kind of information here. There might also be opportunity, which is something that we have been looking into previously on how to make simpler, include a lightweight validation nodes using a CK proof of the entire chain, and then just have very limited information about the actual block being executed. So that is still work in progress. We're not we don't have the proper model for this yet, and no matter what, we need to have the full chain available. And first of all, it's a matter of creating that large pool of efficient nodes that run the basic system. Then we can always build on top of that and extend the validation with thin nodes. It might also be that you're not interested in running a node at all. So this is some examples of this. I'm sure when we move along, we might come up with others. So one thing that we have talked about is to use staking for certain applications. Another straightforward thing is that this MPC token is of course freely tradable, and we could have that being traded through a automated market maker with where you can provide liquidity for such a functionality and earn an interest in doing that. May also be that you're simply delegating your tokens to the existing node operators, and that we're working on a model that is limiting the risk in doing that. There's a risk because you are moving into securing values in the chain, and that comes with a risk as well as a reward. So it's not completely risk-free. Anyway, there are a number of things that you can do without being heavily involved in node operation. And that was the point with these slides. I think that was actually the conclusion of this presentation. So Jeff, just 2 more words. I think I would just present you for this brand new benchmarking chart. So here we are trying to compare the Partisia blockchain to 4 existing networks, the Ethereum, the Solana, the Polkadot, and the Cardano network. Just to emphasize 4 things where we think we have a competitive solution. It's about the basic blockchain service. It's about creating rapidly create blocks, as well as a rapid finalization. We actually expect finalization to be something like 0.5 seconds. It's about scalability that is not compromising the consensus, which is clearly the trade-off that is at stake here. And it's about adding this second dimension to the entire network. I mean, being able to work on private data is extremely important. So we are absolutely expecting that this is going to open up an all new market for blockchain to be able to do that. And we need to facilitate collaboration. And the BYOC is designed for exactly that, so we can align this interoperability and collaboration with our partners. That was not a short presentation maybe, but a presentation at least. So should I bring this screen back to someone?
I think just a quick couple comments. So there are several people who have purchased token in the pre-sale, maybe shortly before the Genesis block had launched, who aren't able to register yet. So we are working on a solution. It's still going to be a couple weeks before you get MPC tokens in your wallet. We're also making some updates as well. Besides that point, someone else asked about registering their node address. We also discussed, everyone previously went through a survey that Peter managed, where they were able to, basically segment some of their tokens to their node operator address and some to their early contribution wallet address. So what we'll probably do is in your KYC portals, update the feature so that you can also register a node operator blockchain address. And then we'll also probably allow you to toggle the amount of tokens you would want to have in said wallets. So stay tuned for that, but I hope that answers that question.
So we have some questions in the chat. Yeah, is that where we that's what we're doing?
I've just been messaging back and forth, people kind of asking some questions on the spot, but Jennifer, maybe it's time that you jump back in and we start with some of the questions that we've been accumulating over the past couple of weeks that the node operators submitted.
Sure. Let me just pull this up. So let me put my video.
Yeah,
back on.
and thanks for that presentation, Kurt. That was really nice.
Okay, so let's start with the very basic questions. So first of all, we're going to start with the basics, and then we'll get a little bit more. We'll do more deep dive technically. So the first question was just, what is a node operator? Can a node operator run more than one node? How to become a node operator, and what is the formal role of a node operator? I think we can cover that all as one subject as an intro.
Yeah, so I think this was pretty much in some of these slides. So what you're actually doing as a node operator. So you have these three different types. So the thing is that this is you're going to sell your trust through these operations. So a part of that is that you are running one node and only one node. I mean, if you have a lot of stakes and you can bring more values across these bridges, you can make more money. You will be selected for more jobs. So this is how you earn money in this system, or one of the ways. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's kind of explains that, I think.
Thank you, Kurt. So the next ones were, what's the operational role as a node operator? How do I stake MPC tokens?
Yeah, so for the staking, right now, everyone just kind of make mpcexplorer.com your go-to front-end website for these things. You can look up your address right in the search, and then there's a stake button. There's also instructions on the Medium. So our Medium Twitter handles, we keep it consistent. It's at Partisia MPC. So if you check out the Medium, you can see instructions with pictures and everything.
Okay, thanks, Brian. How much shall I stake to become a node operator?
Yeah, yes. So we have these thresholds. So it's 10,000 words of MPC token for running a Baker node, 25 for a CK node, and it's 100 for a Oracle node. Oracle nodes is very simple. I mean, in terms of capturing values, because we are actually moving values that is priced across a bridge. When we move data, it might be a different matter. For CK computation, it's more difficult, because here we are computing on people's private information. So how do you actually capture the value of that? How much are you actually want people to stake, in order to run the nodes, running your private computing on your private data? That is why we are turning this around and asking the users of the system to provide the required stakes. The Oracle nodes, the CK nodes, is the more risky. I mean, if you behave nice, I mean, it's only if you actually engage in collusive behavior with other nodes. Otherwise, the cryptography is secure that you are running a proper job. So those are the more risky. The Baker nodes is not really with any risk, and it's very simple to run that.
Okay, just to rectify, it was Baker, minimum of $10,000 worth of MPC tokens. ZK, $25,000 of MPC tokens, and Oracle was $100,000 of MPC tokens. Okay, what are the minimum unlocked stakes to participate? What is the value of an MPC token as stakes?
Yeah, so right now, when we talk about, we were speaking in USD, the amount of tokens currently is going off of 25 cents a coin. So if you want to register your node, that minimum stake is 40,000 MPC tokens. And so we basically on the mainnet beta, we're just running the Bakers. So right now, if you want to get up and running, it's 40,000. But just to clarify something we had talked about earlier, in terms of the node operator rewards, Kurt can confirm this, but I think there's a maximum amount stake. Is that right, Kurt?
Not so much a maximum. That's more for the subsidies and model for.
Yeah, that's what I was just trying to clarify. So for your for the testnet reward tokens, there's a maximum stake, right? And it's buys of 500,000 tokens.
500, yes, correct.
Okay, yeah. So your min stake right now, everyone, is 40,000 tokens, and your max stake that would be included with the rewards is 500,000. So if you stake 5 million tokens, your 1% per month is on 500,000 tokens still, just to clarify.
Okay, thanks, Brian. So what are the requirements for operating a Baker node?
Peter?
This is current system requirements and a lock minimum.
So there's a staking that has been mentioned. There's also some system physical requirement for the node. Current requirements are listed in the documentation pages. So we are expecting that the node operator role will be much more heterogeneous and much more complicated in the future. For now, the actual capacity for the node is actually quite limited, so it's not that hard to run a node. But we are basically what we are hoping is that we're hoping that this is going to be the primary challenge for doing MPC, means that the nodes will need to be increased in the future. But that's sort of a very happy hope, because at that point you will also get money to pay for that.
Okay, Peter, maybe you can continue with the following technical system requirements for operating a ZK node.
So running a Baker node requires you to be on preferably on a low latency network. So it means that you have to be connected quite good to the other nodes. You also have to have a fair network bandwidth, but you have to run a lot of transactions. You basically have to validate what's going on the blockchain. Being a ZK node is quite different. That's where you get access to the confidential data. So this means that the data that's running through your node is now being a part of the secrets that are being computed on. It also means that you need to have a very good network connectivity. So you need to be placed in where your network node can run at least 100 megabit per second, preferably even more in when you have bursts of high performance computations. So the requirement for the Baker nodes is much closer to a natural or normal blockchain node, whereas when you're running ZK, you need to have a lot more network bandwidth.
Okay, thanks, Peter. So now we can continue with the system requirements for an Oracle node.
And for the Oracle node, the system requirements is actually not that complicated. You just need to have a connection to whatever you are bridging to. So in the current setting, we have the Ropstein network as a testnet, and then you just need to have a connection with that. So if we are going to introduce other nodes, and we intend to, then that needs to be configured to your node as well. So it's not that complicated. However, the requirements for having access to other parts of the network might actually be steep. So if you're if the way that you're running Ethereum integration is actually by running your own Ethereum node, well, then you should check out what Ethereum requires. So that the requirements for the oracles is much more heterogeneous and is correlated to how safe you want to be with the integration and where you get the data from.
Thanks, Peter. Okay, so what is the payment as node operators? Is there any tax on the transaction fee? If you could answer those two questions, please.
There's no tax on the transaction fee. The reward is specified. So that was in one of the slides. So that's actually a number of criteria. So that's basic blockchain where you have the network computing cycles and storage. And then you move into the more advanced stuff. You have something like multiplications, and you have pre-processing materials. And when we move into the moving of values, we have a percentage of the values being moved. So it's sort of made up by these different components. So that's why I put in these examples of a very simple transaction, which is $1 USD cent, and the example of a CK computation is like the example that we looked into in this for this event was an auction with 20 participants submitting sealed bid into the system, and the system is computing and finding the winner, and that cost 2.5 USD. I mean, this is actually interesting because this is kind of a security model, which is pretty strong. We used to run governmental auctions, paid fairly good for running that. I mean, here you can even get a higher security level, or almost as, I mean, I would say even higher, and it's $2.50. And I tell you, it was a bit more for running a governmental auction. This is, I mean, this is a power of the network here. So we are actually looking into something that is extremely powerful.
How much more, Kurt? Just to kind of, so that everyone understands how much of a difference it actually is.
Yeah, this is, I mean, the jobs is you multiply with 1 million or something like that for doing these kind of jobs.
Yeah, so you can reduce $1 million job to $2.50 essentially.
Yeah,
something like that.
Okay, just on the last of the basic questions here, does the Partisia blockchain provide block awards?
Exactly, that was on the slide. So we actually announced today the first scheme for doing exactly that. For those of you who's helping us bootstrapping this network, which is super valuable for us. I mean, we're just producing piece of software, putting it out there, and you are the network. You run the network and make the money in the network. So this is the bootstrapping thing. They had the first announcement here for the pre-mainnet, where of course there's no transactions, there's no money floating through the system. So you are paid in MPC token for your help. It was 1% per month for the stake for the stake tokens. That was the simple version of this.
Okay, thanks,
more
Kurt.
details.
So now we'll go into the questions that this group has submitted. So we have our first questions about the business strategy coming from CryptID. So thank you, CryptID, for sending those in. So question, Partisia has many unique selling points, but does that mean it will position itself into a niche and not be as broad a project as Ethereum, Avalanche, Phantom, Sol, ADA, Near, etc.? What are the project's aims in terms of breadth of scope? Where does the project want to position itself in 4 years' time?
Yeah, maybe I can start and we can maybe go around the table here. So we have, I mean, this is a very generic network. I mean, I think if we go back to the benchmark charts, this is one of the fastest blockchain, the basic blockchain. So you can choose that as any other blockchains. Then on top of that, we add the privacy. We were forced to do a very efficient blockchain because when we are running MPC system, it's a distributed system. We need to make sure what is the state of these computations, and be using the blockchain to keep track of these initial states for the MPC computations. So we have been forced to actually also make it one of the fastest blockchain, as well as providing the privacy. So it's a niche in the sense that we actually have an opportunity to have focus on a niche in order to initiate the network, but it's not a niche network at all. It's actually very broad and generic.
Exactly. It's a global infrastructure that coordinates with all the other blockchains as well. So really the use cases are kind of unbounded. It is important to find obviously some things that stick in the very early days. So we do have a focus on that. Real quick, Peter, there was a good question in the chat. Have we started to think through setting benchmarks for what permissible downtime would be for a node without penalty? Like, for example, is 30 minutes once or twice a week for OS patching okay? Or a 12-hour outage for VPS?
No, we haven't. It is a good question, and we need to think about that.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that at some point it will be clearer from the logs whether or not how soon the node can expect to start to react, so that you have a chance to inspect your node and say, hey, I have 30 minutes now. it's kind of hard to plan for it because it is a decentralized network and your node have to pick up the pieces if someone else drops the ball. So I can't give you any guarantees, but maybe we can put something in the log that makes it easier for people to actually understand what's going on right now and whether or not your node can be rebooted for maintenance.
Awesome. So I just basically added the notes for our next team tech call to sort of put on the to-do list that we're going to come up with some benchmarks for node performance.
Okay, thanks, guys. So next question about the last question about business strategy, also coming from CryptID. Are there any plans to support some of the newer infrastructure projects such as Polkadot, Avalanche, Solana, Phantom, Kadena, Near, etc.?
For sure. I mean, this is again. I mean, we are using this BYOC kind of native bridging for the network to facilitate collaboration with other networks. So it's as easy to decide on whether you want to accept a second layer on your own network, because it's just going to promote your own token. That's kind of a key to facilitate the economic alignment around collaborations. So yes, that is absolutely what we are going to do. I guess I can reveal current plans are to bring in USDC from Solana as an example for bridging that in. There is a number of things that we are planning to do, and we have a strong set of contributors to this network who is involved in a number of these projects, and we are discussing and planning with them.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, there was one last question that basically came from the group, which was when will you announce the public sale date and price?
Yes.
Yeah, so we had sort of charted for on January 31st to have a few things sort of released. What that was going to be is, number one, we're going to start the open source process. As Peter put it earlier today, it's not exactly just a copy paste, one click process. So it may roll out over a very, concise time period. But the idea is that in February, with that open source, we can then also really hammer down the sort of testing and then the stress testing of the network. So that's when we can launch some bug bounty campaigns. That's when we can all try to spam the network to see what happens and if it's able to be slowed down, and then we can reevaluate some fee models. And then in addition to all that, that was when we were going to announce sort of the public sale and launch of mainnet and with a price. Things have been a bit shaky in the markets, as everyone knows. So internally, we were on target for a March sale. So we're sort of operating under that same assumption. In terms of the price, the ballpark we're looking at is 40 cents. So it's still going to be down to the wire on how exactly that gets announced on the 31st and how much detail we give. Because we want to stay flexible and make sure that we're not tying ourselves on any unnecessary deadlines. The top priorities is really making sure the network is super stable. We, as mentioned, want to give the retroactive block production rewards so that everyone who's already been in committee starts to see some benefit there, as well as anyone who joins committee can immediately start getting some benefit while this process plays out. It's a long-term project. Many of you are on 4-year unlock. Some of you are on 2 or 3. So what we don't want to do is rush a launch or a sale when the market's questionable, and really it's about the technology and making sure everything's rock solid. So we'll still give as much information as possible on January 31st. But like I said, ballpark amounts. One question that came was, are we for sure going to do a sale? What we will for sure do is at least give some allocation for everyone who's KYC'd, at least the ability to buy some tokens. We're not going to, just have everyone KYC for nothing. The reason that question was asked is because we're also looking at maybe IEOs and kind of coming out on an exchange. So some people ask, well, if you do that, then we wasted our time doing KYC. We will make sure that there's for sure some type of sale so people can participate. So I hope that's a good enough answer for now. And just on January 31st, we'll put a bit more of the plan on paper and send it out.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, so now moving on to questions about incentives and rewards. So please, this one comes from Sueli. Please provide a real life example of ZK node rewards and how it scales with higher stakes.
So yeah, I guess that was the auction that we talked about in a few minutes ago. So maybe they posed the question after that. But anyway, so that I think the auction was is a good example of this. But and this is also where you I mean, one thing is the actual computation that you need to do on the private data. So that costs whatever it costs. It's the fixed prices in the network, and then it's what may scale is the data that you need to protect. You might want to increase the stakes that you want the nodes to put on the table, basically to run the computation, and that costs something. That is 1% of the values. So that's how it's scaled. I mean, just to dive a little bit into this, I mean, this is a Web 3.0 kind of opportunities where we are really stepping into the market for banking, for healthcare, for advertisements in a new way, etc. I mean, just take advertisement. That's the main driver of the internet economy. I mean, the users, they're basically selling our data, and you're not getting any share of this. If you have a technology that can return the control of your data to the subjects, then you have a completely different business model for running advertisement. So this is kind of pointing at some of the potential values with this technologies, that you can have decentralized control and you can still be able to use that data in optimizing services like advertisement. So you can have your control of your data, and you can still do an even better job of preparing the procurement for you being sold to an advertisement on a site than Google can do today, because you know better who you are and what your preferences are, and you will actually appreciate, because you're already voluntarily accepting to being part of this and making money on being displayed advertisement that is more in a better fit with your actual preferences. So imagine what kind of businesses that this is going to open, and in general, I mean, having this ability to bring your private preferences into automated network is something that people have been talking about for forever. I mean, it's like 90s stuff, but never really implemented, because you don't have the right tool to make sure that you're not losing your bargaining power in putting your data out there. So this is what you can do with the technology. I mean, we could talk forever about these kind of things, but
okay,
yeah.
thanks, Kurt. So this one is
wait, Jennifer, real quick on that note, Kurt, is there anything you want to say about Partisia's MPC technology and sort of just how long you guys have been conceptually working on it, then actually developing it? And
yes,
I guess Amar just asked, is the MPC tech that Partisia is introducing a special type of MPC?
Yeah.
Or
okay. Yeah. So a quick look down that alley. So we have the partners behind this also include Ivan Damgaard. Ivan Damgaard is kind of one of the founders of this technology. He was the first one to prove that the MPC was a generic computation machine back in the 80s, and we started in the early 2000s to collaborate on bringing this technology out of universities, and people was kind of laughing at us when then we did the first use of this with an auction in 2008. And if you go and look back and look at that, that was actually a DEX. That was a real decentralized exchange where actually people had private data coming into an exchange and settle prices in a real economic setting. That was the beginning of MPC. So that's then we started to work commercially on this and build the team that can do commercial graded software. And then we had this very close collaboration between computer scientists doing mathematical model and protocols and putting them into real life use on an assembly line almost. So we're working on, I don't know, the 8 newest set of protocol called Real that comes out with this network. And this is probably the Partisia blockchain is kind of the 5th different platform that we're building for MPC. So there is new things coming out, and we are learning from what we experience in the market and what has been developed by the leading experts in the field, which is behind the project. I mean, it's just, if you look at the people and the resumes for the people behind the project, they have been in this forever.
Yeah, and if you're super into it, actually, I have this book here from Jesper and Ivan who called Secure Multi-Party Computation.
They wrote the book on it.
Yeah. It's hard to read. I'll just say that. I try my best, but
yeah, you know, that's that textbook for anything, right? But it's not all textbooks that is actually being used. This one is the most used textbook, so they use that on all Ivy Leagues universities.
Great. So just a FYI, Peter, we can't see you. We can only see your hair. Ah, yeah, thanks.
I just got too cozy. Sorry.
So next question here. What do you have any plans to incentivize decentralization in terms of where the nodes are based? And do you have any plans to incentivize higher spec nodes that help improve the speed of the network?
Yes. So this is about the basic blockchain services, where it's all a peer-to-peer network. So here we are working on a model for incentivizing propagation and connectivity. So this is about making the peer-to-peer network as strong and efficient as possible. There is, to my knowledge, no existing examples of this in practice. There's been a few studies on this. We have designed a model that is actually incentivizing this. We'll start talking a lot more about this when we move forward. And this is going to incentivize and give the nodes that is the more efficient nodes in what is a black box for most of us. And the most efficient nodes in the peer-to-peer network, they're getting the most reward. So the whole thing is that this is information that is local information for the individual nodes. No one else but the individual nodes know what is going on in the neighborhood. So the whole incentive protocol is about revealing that information to provide incentive to bring that out to the open and pay people for providing that type of information. So this is going to be a system that is incentivizing exactly what was up here in the question.
Okay, so in another question, which is a bit similar from Misty Panda, will the performance of our node in terms of hardware specs in any way influence the rewards that we earn? So will a higher spec system, which measures higher performance with respect to sending notifications to the rewards contract, earn more rewards, or is the performance irrelevant so long as the minimum requirement is met? And to complete this, some of us have created websites for our nodes. We may have jumped the gun because after Reason, the document posted for node operators a few weeks ago, it seems as though the node will not function in the same way as we've experienced with other blockchain staking mechanisms. What advantages might we have to promote our nodes since we won't need to get other MPC holders to stake on our nodes specifically?
Two very different questions. But anyway, I think the first question was actually answered by the previous answer. So this is the incentive provision system that will be put in place. It is exactly going to reward nodes that are the more efficient. So if you invest in higher bandwidth, etc., you also get a reward for that.
Yeah, maybe the basic blockchain service in the very basic setting would be hard to measure the difference in, because it's not that hard. But once the system starts rolling and the CK networks, the bandwidth and the efficiency will promote eventually into the trust core. The other part about staking for blockchains, I think, was also answered by Kurt's slides and the talk there. It's something that we are the staking mechanism, the staking models is being developed as we speak, and I think it's best to refer you to the slides that Kurt presented.
Okay, yeah, just FYI, these questions were the questions that have been submitted throughout the week. So some things will be a bit repetitive, but I don't want to leave anybody out. These people took time to send in their questions, so I want to make sure we get them all.
No, yes, exactly. Sorry. And it's also, I mean, we are sort of learning from some of these questions, and there's a number of things that we can do. So the more question you have, it might actually be that we overlooked something that is an easy win for all. So I mean, it's super valuable for us to get this feedback. And the example here is good because it forced us to think about these operations that help the network that actually could be done by anyone. So a light node where you don't have the same requirement for having a very strong service layer agreement type of or performance. So like the producing pre-processing material, I think there's a number of opportunities that you can do without running these the basic nodes. Or there is. It's not something I think there is a number of things you can do.
Thanks, Kurt. And thanks to all of you who are attending the call and who submitted these questions. This is really helpful. Okay, so the next one for you is from NodeOps, who extracted some things from the white paper. When can node operators start claiming rewards? Are rewards proportional to MPC or distributed equally irrespective of node type? Will Baker nodes and ZK nodes claim equal? Are there any rewards for 64 node operator? Are there any rewards for 64 node operators who have helped power the testnet for many months now?
That was a lot of questions.
But
some of it can be answered. You can see on the node reward contract right now how you are collecting some of the testnet tokens that are being rewarded. I think Kurt's slides also talked about how the rewards are going to be for the testnet. I think that was 2 answers given.
Yeah, that was the big one.
I'm not necessarily sure if I can.
I think the rest is answered in the slides.
Otherwise, I mean,
have a look at this.
Yeah, the network is live. You can see how the incentive scheme and how the money is flowing currently in the current network. So the network is live, and you should inspect that. But we are going to give you. There's going to be some tokens being granted to the people who were powering the
to that just to clarify what will be an obvious question that we'll get in the future, which is, if we update the Genesis block, or let's say relaunch the Genesis block, what about all those blocks produced previously? I had written in the chat here when someone else asked, we are saving the data on who has already produced the blocks. So there we will provide the retroactive rewards based on what was already staked, what blocks have already been produced. So although it's not automated at this time, everything's being tracked, and you'll receive them at mainnet, the bonus tokens.
Yeah, we want to have the degrees of freedom to do crazy thing with the network in this testing phase, and of course, reward anyone for at the same time. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, guys. So the next question comes from, I believe, Aladdin or something. Sorry, I'm not exactly sure, but the total MPC token supply is not specified in any document. Only information about the distribution of total token supply. Information asymmetry is complicated for investors and stakeholders. What will be the MPC total token supply? Is it fixed, finite, inflationary, or deflationary? But there are a few more questions, but if we can start with that one.
It's 1 billion tokens We'll update the white paper soon. There's a few updates that we'll provide in that white paper. That being said, we have published the supply in a lot of places, but it's probably not in the white paper. But yeah, it's 1 billion MPC. And so all the early contributors who bought tokens, it was in your agreements as well.
So is this fixed, finite, inflationary, or deflationary?
It's a fixed max supply. The fully diluted network is a combination of people's tokens unlocking and becoming in circulation. So if you purchased in the early contribution round, and let's say you have a 4-year quarterly unlock, you'll receive all your tokens, but only portions of it unlock every quarter over 4 years. So what you see is you'll have this 1 billion tokens that will eventually completely exist, but it's going to take forever to get there, because the ecosystem tokens, I think that's 20% of the network. Excuse me if I'm misquoting, but those are, at least in terms of the 10% we want to dedicate to the nodes. Kurt's been working on a model to release those over a 10-year period. So it will take a while to get there. And then there's, of course, the opportunities to create deflationary mechanisms within the network. So just one idea that has nothing to do with what's currently programmed is at some point in the future, you could, let's say, burn tokens every time you run a privacy computation. So eliminating them from the system, like something like that forces more token utility, creates deflation on the full supply. That's just a very basic concept. It's not something that's implemented right now, but just to give you an idea of certain ways that that could happen.
Maybe just one comment to that. So the decoupled token economy actually allows us to do more things like that. So it's just an entry barrier to get a revenue stream. It's not the means of payment for the network. So it's much easier to maintain fixed prices for the use of the services while having a token that is just being stronger and stronger, and thereby backing the network in a more substantial way. So burning MPC token is, I mean, if that's a good incentive, could work.
Thanks, guys. Okay, so to continue with Aiden's questions, you have to strongly create value for MPC tokens through some intrinsic, extrinsic mechanisms. Scarcity is one of that kind of mechanisms. That's why you put 3-4-year lockdown periods for some token holders and implement staking mechanisms. I'm not sure that these are enough to drive value for MPC tokens and to attract crypto investors. As a plan B, do you think some future scarcity models like deflationary design, delegated staking, buyback, or investing operating income in MPC token by foundations, etc.?
Yeah, so I just mentioned the deflationary stuff, which is down the roadmap. I think the most imminent one, which we've discussed with a few of the node operators recently, is it's in the yellow paper. I think it's referred to as community staking. Some people would rather call it delegated proof of staking, but generally what it means is, and actually someone in the chat had just asked, what they said, if I'm running a node of 10,000 worth of MPC, if someone stakes 100K into my node, do I get upgraded to Oracle? So it was kind of the community staking concept in the yellow paper, is other people would be able to commit stakes to other nodes, and then there's a reward mechanism. It's not going to be on version 1.0 of mainnet, but it would, community staking will come like the near term after the mainnet's launching. It's a priority. There are some partners involved, like such as p2p.org and the conceptualization, future implementations who are part of that discussion. As many of you may know, they're one of the biggest sort of delegated staking providers in the world. I think they have like 5 billion or so currently staked across various networks. Used to be 5 billion, now it's 2.5. But point is, version 1, what you see is what you get right now. It's a very complex product, but as soon as mainnet launches, then we can start to deliver all the other things. In a perfect world, as the questionnaire asked, we need it right now. Well, it is not possible. We need to deliver this version 1, and then we can quickly iterate on utility features at the infrastructure level, as well as the application level. So that's why we have a lot of the pre-sale majority on the 4-year quarterly unlock. It's a big global infrastructure. So that's why everyone had to buy in and promise to stick around for a while, because there's a massive roadmap ahead.
Okay, thanks, Brian. So to continue with Aiden's great questions, as a relatively new model, decoupling network value from token value, this model has some limitations and concerns. Is it yet to be battle tested from the viewpoint of crypto investors? What are your considerations?
I think we did pretty well in the pre-sale market with the investors. I think in general, it was received very well. I think that one of the biggest value adds is that it removes a big component of the volatility you see in the dictating of network pricing on Bitcoin or Ethereum. The miners are the biggest dumpers. So by allowing the node operators, to earn an ETH or Bitcoin, you can continue to dump those coins as the miners on the native networks do if you want to liquidate them. But it relieves that pressure on the token economy, which is one of the biggest, the hardest and most expensive things on the startup of a token economy. If you look at EOS is a interesting example, because they used inflation, and so each block you were getting EOS rewards, and it's such a heavy burden on that network. It's so expensive for the node operators to keep liquidating those tokens. So I think it's a great model for a layer 1 because it removes the need for the node operators to constantly sell. So you can rather just stake and hold and then receive value in more liquid currency. So I think that's super helpful for the early startup of a network. And the investor seemed to be aligned with that concept and opinion as well.
Okay, thanks, Brian. So last question from Aiden here. In the short and medium run, the operating income of the network cannot cover the cost of running nodes. In the draft blog, you state that the Partisia Blockchain Foundation is allowed to use up to 10% of the total supply of tokens to motivate node operators bootstrapping the network. Up to 10%, it's ambiguous. As early node operators before network launch and during beginning phase of the network growth, we'd like to precisely know how much and how long you subsidize node runners. Do you have any concrete plan?
This was in the slides, right? We presented the pre-mainnet subsidies, and we're announcing a 10-year schedule later. So
okay,
that question, we made sure to answer that one in the slides. We saw that one. Thanks for the good question.
Okay, so moving on to BYOC. 2 questions, one from CryptID. The Partisia chain solves several crucial problems bringing new concepts to blockchain and introduces a unique concept, bring your own coin. It targets specific areas. Is there any intention to widen its scope and to allow it to become even broader in its ambitions? So in some ways, it becomes more similar to established projects such as Ethereum, Polkadot, Solana, Algorand, Cardano, etc.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, this is kind of the vehicle for collaboration. This is where we align the economic incentives and facilitate interoperability across all networks in the blockchain ecosystem. So this is exactly why it's designed. This is what it's designed for. So,
okay, thanks. Yeah. So on the same subject from Justin, will community be able to vote on what coins can be brought into BYOC? I know it's starting with Ethereum and then possibly Bitcoin. How will it be chosen? What else comes to Partisia? Will BYOC only affect Oracle nodes or Baker nodes as well?
Yeah. So clearly there is going to be an increasing involvement of the community in the decision making. and the governance of the network, of course. We do have in the beginning a roadmap where we are prioritizing a number of different things. So, but we are absolutely open for all these opportunities that the community see. And so I mentioned earlier that we are looking at an integration with Solana in order to bring in a world currency, the USDC, at a low cost into the network. So that is just the beginning. And I think maybe Peter, if you want to elaborate on this, but we have a number of things that we need to do for the network, and I think we should just come back and you can see the full roadmap.
It's kind of complicated to give precise answers about something about the visions that we have. The vision is that the bring your own coin technology, the data bridges, the Oracle bridges, the token bridges, is going to be a very crucial part of the value proposition that the platform is going to bring, so that people can actually experience and see many more usages. So if you think about a use case for the token bridge, if you think about the use case for these bring your own coins, and you think, well, maybe we should do that, contact us, because we might be thinking about it, we may not be thinking about it, but for us, it's clearly a technology that needs to be extended upon in great many lengths. So the MPC is one part of it, the confidential computation is one part of it, the other part is this novel way of doing the moving of assets across chains.
Yeah, and there's also the awesome thing about being our own layer 1 too, is that we can mint things natively. So for example, Frax, who we're going to be working closely with on stable coins, we can mint native Frax. So there's a natural progression is that Ethereum bridge is working. So a natural progression is, of course, ERC20 tokens, and not far away from also being able to bridge. But you also get to a certain point where if the network's big enough and growing, there's no reason we can't get US dollar coin from Circle to, place some native coins on our network that are backed by real values. So yeah, that's what's really special about having, both sides covered, is we can bridge assets, and we can also natively create them as well.
Okay, thanks, guys. So moving on. So just if anybody on the call has got questions related to these questions, please just throw them into the chat. And when we finish with this list, then we'll give you the opportunity to ask your questions out loud. So on to KFC. We have a question here from Joshua. Is it too late to generate the 3 key sets and change my Partisia node wallet address? Can I still submit the survey link? I was busy and away for a while.
So the survey is closed. We have a new process for doing the decentralized registration. That's all being, I think Brian just today released the all new Discord channel. So if you're in the Discord channel, go have a look at it. Otherwise, get an invite. I think it's fairly open now that you can get into it. You can definitely update and work with the wallet and start your node operator, especially if you have tokens already in your wallet. So there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to start your own node.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Next question.
Yeah, and before we jump there, I will place. I already did earlier today, but I will place again the link on the mpcexplorer.com site. There's a register node button in the top right corner. So if you hit that, you can set your BLS key and register your node. And while you're there, this is another question that was important in the chat. Someone asked, maybe it was actually in the spreadsheet, Jennifer, but someone asked, and this is for Peter, they asked how their quote KYC data is being protected. I think what they were referring to.
That was the next question from Hannah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you register your node at that link I'm referring to, which I dropped in the node operator validators chat, mpcexplorer.com. When you register your node there, it does ask like website, organization name, because I don't know if you noticed during the presentation, but the consensus algorithm that we refer to that Partisia blockchain uses, we're calling proof of trust. And it's proof of stake with the additional levels of trust that come with being sort of more known nodes. And so when you are registering your node at the website, it does ask a few questions. That's not KYC data, to be clear. It's more just how your node will appear. So how do you want your organization name to show for your node when it's showing your rank in the committee, I guess. But to that point, when you do register that, Peter, does it save on chain where it's visible, or is that more a backend thing just for our website?
It is shown on chain. The idea
Okay.
is that the trust is supposed to permute through it. We don't necessarily check what you're doing, but what we really want is that the people that are holding the secrets of the blockchain, that is not only the keys to the oracles and the keys to the committee, but also the zero knowledge computation data. Those people should be, it should be transparent who's holding your data and why you are paying them for holding those data. So the idea of the trust is that it is commuting from the node operators themselves. So that's why we are asking these, I wouldn't necessarily call them sensitive, but very direct questions about who you are. And as you said, it's not a KYC question. It's rather, how do you want to be perceived in the network? What should people think about you as a node operator in the network?
Right. So it's not like your KYC info or anything you put in there.
Nope.
So just keep that in mind when you're registering it. How do you want to brand your node? Because it's going to be a bit of a competitive marketplace where you want to be a top node and involved in the committee for Oracle or ZK or BYOC oracles. So you're going to want to have a lot of stakes in there. Community staking will come at some point. So you're going to want more people to stake with you, and basically have a better trust score, as we refer to it. Is it necessary to use wallet private key in the config.json? Is it going to change in future?
So what we need is the node that's running is actually also collecting the money that you are collecting for the work that you're doing. So the node operators are all the time sending transactions on the network where you're saying, hey, this is my local neighborhood, these are my peers, this is how they perform, this is how I perceive my local area. Similarly, if you're running Oracle operations, if you are moving assets, you are also signing those transactions, you're using a key. That key needs to be on the server. It doesn't mean that your entire investment needs to be on that server. It's just that we need to have a key that's known by the network, which is connected to your address and has access to the key that's running your part of the blockchain, basically. So we need to have something that correlates back to you. However, it doesn't need to be your entire net value. If you only want to stake a little, then you can just stake little on that account, but then that also means that the stakes on your current operation will be limited. As Brian's mentioning, we are intending to do more, how do you put it, delicate cutting up of these divisions, but that's how it is at this point.
Okay, thanks guys. So next question from T-Boy the Noob. So my node config uses my KYC Partisia address, and this will hold all my MPC. If the node is compromised, I may lose all my MPC and may not be able to fulfill the requirements of a validator. Is there any way I could relocate some of my MPC? Well,
yeah, so that's what we said about the updating the portal, right? So people can.
And it is in the final network, it's going to be much more elaborate. Right now, we are going to change the KYC portal so that you can move some of it around. So there's going to be a secondary place for your for the rest of your tokens. You should be aware, and this is something, the trust that is in your running your node is also. We are putting quite a bit of faith in it. We are setting with the keys for the large oracle, which is basically what controls the value on Ethereum, is actually being stored on your your machine. So your machine is actually part of the entire trust model. So I would try to recommend that you at least give some thought about how to securing and protecting your own machine, because that is what eventually is going to be the protection of the entire network.
All right, thanks.
Can people unregister a node yet, Peter? And so someone basically asked, what did they ask? Where was it?
Yes, people
can you change it, or
you can remove your node registration. That's possible.
so
I don't think
at this
it's
point, if you want
written
to at this point,
it's
if you want
not
to
in
change it, at this point, if you want to change it, you just unregister and re-register a different node, right?
Yeah, that would be something like that. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so next, does the MPC in the beta net have some value already? That's coming from MG Lober, MG from MG.
If it has some value already, in the sense of,
That's the whole question. Does the MPC in the beta net have some value already?
well, you need to have it is being used for Oracle services, and it's being used for node operation right now. So yes, it does have value at this point.
Okay, thanks. And
so just let me clarify that. The value is, I think what Peter means is, yes, there's value because things are working and it's expensive technology that's been developed. But the reason that there's not financial value is that it's using Ropsten ETH. If it were to be using mainnet ETH, then there's actual liquid value in the nodes. Right now, everything is a test token. So yeah, the value is that people are now paying 25 or 30 cents per token if they want to continue buying off the private sale. But and yes, it's expensive technology that's been developed, but there's a distinction between, there's currently no financial values being transferred. It's all testnet and fake coins essentially. The MPC tokens are a representation of mainnet and the proper amounts. But yeah, as you know, it's not transferable, and ETH is ETH Ropsten for the bridge.
Also a bit confusing that, MPC is also the technology as well as the token. So I think Peter was asking about the technology, which is used for safeguarding. Yeah. And anyway, yes, let's move on.
Okay, so moving on, we've got a question from one of our dear administrators. Is there a chance that the dispute mechanism can be misused by corrupt parties to initiate lots of disputes, and they take a chance on the voting process that it may go in their favor? And he's referring to page 19 of the yellow paper. Not sure how this will work, but it could be a risk for node operators. Presume that there will be a fail-safe like other blockchains, but would be good for you guys to clarify.
So when you are doing a dispute, you need to stake stuff. So the network is now can see that the person who is saying there's something wrong here has actually put money where the mouth is. So we're talking about that the person has to put something up for value. That value is being used if the dispute turns out to be false. So the claim is not true and the dispute is rejected, then the stakes is actually being distributed among the node operators that participated in the dispute vote. So the network will benefit, the node operators will benefit if a dispute is being rejected. And the network will also benefit if a dispute is actually validated. The current dispute mechanism is automated. So every dispute will actually trigger automatically that all the nodes will start voting on how they see the world, whether or not the oracle has performed correctly. So this voting mechanisms, yes, it's true. You can try to figure out a way to game it, but you have to pay for it. So regardless of what happens, the people that are running the network will benefit because there will be there will be a revenue stream as a result of all these disputes.
All right, thanks, Peter. Anything else, guys, on that one?
No, it's just that this is carefully designed. So it's also designed for a collusive proof system. So you can have the people running the oracle colluding with someone outside to raise a dispute and stuff like that. So that kind of collusion proof is part of the design of the system.
Okay, thanks. So very last question in this section comes from node operator at partisiarocks.com. Nice name here. Can people who buy into public sales stake their MPC to nodes? If yes, how can they do so? If yes, when will you come out with a guide video demo on how to do this? If not, then how are you thinking about preventing a dump from small holders? And lastly, is there any plan to integrate MPC with other wallets such as Exodus to expand the reach? Such wallets have other currencies as ADA, Solana available with staking.
Yeah, we'll definitely add more wallets. We need to make sure our own work first. But it's a natural progression. We'll also try to get Ledger support as soon as possible.
And the first questions in that little group of questions?
I think it was already answered. What was it again? But I'm pretty sure we've answered it.
Can people who buy into the public sales stake their MPC to nodes? If yes, how can they do so? If yes,
Yeah,
when
so
will you come out with a guide?
community, yeah, so that's the community staking we've talked about, and it's not available on version 1.0, but we're going to try to get it working as quick as possible. As for the small people dumping, I mean, it's a long run network, you know, there's no one really to dump. It's a quarterly unlock. So I think we're actually going to get a lot of demand that's going to outpace that based on what I see and how many emails we get a day of people asking to run nodes. I would say we're averaging, you know, 5 to 10 more people a day. And we haven't even started marketing, which we'll touch on in a second. So we expect, you know, assuming that the markets are existing and thriving, I think there's actually a lot more demand queued up than people who are going to just want to leave the project.
Okay, thanks, Brian. So just FYI, we have reached the 90 minutes. We have right now about 7 or 8 more questions from this list. We'll try to go fast so we can take your questions. I hope you guys can still stay on the call. All of our team, we can all stay on the call, right? You guys are good for another half hour or so?
Yep.
Okay.
Kind of.
So moving on, penalties. This one is from Naveen. Are there any penalty to be added to node operators if they miss sending proofs? If yes, where is the threshold to be expected? How long is the block time after mainnet? Why you set node operator required staking amount setting based on USD value? Do you plan to change the staking requirement based on MPC value rather than USD value?
Yeah, so the first iteration, it is actually MPC value. You know, you have to do 40,000 tokens to run the Baker. It's actually something that maybe Peter can elaborate on. Currently, we're just going to fix it to the MPC, right? And that's based off of current price. How that's going to update over time, we'll need to still finalize, I believe, unless we've already decided, Peter. But I think it makes more sense to be, you know, holding the MPC values. It's just a lot more smoother. So the benchmarks are kind of a good starting point, but it will solidify more over time, and updates can occur based on price changes.
There's a number of prices and exchange rates that we need to make sure that is sufficiently actively integrated into the blockchain. We have some preliminary thoughts for bootstrapping the initial sets of price vectors. They are going to be part of at least the next couple of months, where we are going to dynamically adjust the prices. I mean, let's assume that the price of ETH suddenly skyrockets, then the dispute mechanisms have to take that into account. But there's some designs for it. So hopefully the exchange rate should be dynamically imported into the system and therefore natively available for the oracles to work with.
Maybe just to add to that, because this is also part of the whole design of the network, that these prices fluctuate. So it doesn't matter so much when you run a Baker node. When you run a bridge, it do matter, because you're actually backing the values that is moved across the bridge. So here you have a a price oracle or data oracle that is pricing the MPC. And then you work with these epochs where you're backing the values being moved. But the epochs is a dynamic size, so you can if the prices go down, if you can't back as much, then you can just adjust. You can adjust the time period. So the system can be flexible for fluctuating prices.
Okay, thank you so much. So the last question on punishments comes from Matthias, who asks, how would violating the rules according to the WP be defined? Going offline during ZK computation, is that enough to get punished? Further, how are the 50,000 up to 500,000 MPC that are allocated to node op accounts determined? Is having a website a must, or does it bring just an advantage in competing against other node ops?
So we are looking at trying to establish something called a trust code. So we're trying to make sure that we encapsulate all the workings and doings of the nodes into something called a trust code, where we are collecting. There's a large difference between performing poorly at some times and then performing maliciously. If you're performing provably maliciously, then we are going to punish you directly. If you are performing poorly, so this could be that your node crashes because maybe you're just running on your own desktop and it's poorly maintained, or whatever reason, it's just rebooting it, then your trust score will just decrease a bit, and that will eventually affect your ability to make money on the work that's being offered on the network. You don't necessarily, to the point about websites, you don't have to have a website. As I said, it's all about creating a trustworthy appearance on the net.
Okay, thanks for that, Peter. So the next group of questions, so we've got 5 questions about the requirements of being a node operator. We might have covered these at the very beginning when we sort of went through the basics here, but this one comes from Justin. After TGE and mainnet launch, will node operators require 10K USD value of MPC tokens to run a node? I think we covered that. So then people outside of the private sale would be able to run a node if they complete KYC and hold 10 USD worth of MPC.
I don't know if I understood that question. Can you ask it one more time?
Yeah, I think the question is basically, now if people who come in and they just buy 10K worth of tokens, can they become node operators? I believe that's what he's saying, but I'll just repeat it.
Yeah.
So then people outside of the private sale would be able to run a node if they complete KYC and hold 10K USD worth of MPC.
Yeah, so if there's still someone who wants to run a node, we'll still sell them MPC to get their node started, even though the round is closed. We could still do that for people. When the public's in, as we've said earlier, node registration is now automated at the MPC Explorer website. So when we update the Genesis block during this test phase, again, whoever had bought up to that date, assuming we've been able to complete the KYC and verification stage behind the scenes, they'll get the tokens in the account so they can register. When mainnet launches, anyone who buys tokens can auto-register their node just by following the instructions. So then it's more like open and automated, but it already is for anyone who has the tokens in the wallets, and there will be another drop at some point, an update, so that people who didn't have the tokens yet but already paid will get them.
Okay, just on top of that, so what's the maximum limit of node operators for the Partisia blockchain?
Virtually unbounded. If you really want to go, I think the current architecture supports easily 1,000 nodes, so that's sort of the cap that we are looking for right now. If we want to go above that, we have to figure out a way to split the work in a more heterogeneous way.
Okay, thanks, Peter. So next question is coming from John Deere or Eugenie, I'm not sure. Hi guys, thanks for the special AMA for node operators. Our pleasure. I'm an early contributor. Now I'm running a node and I have a couple of questions. MPC staking is now available for early contributors. Great news, but some Ether is required for gas. Given fluctuations in market is a bit risky. It is a bit risky. So how are you going to encourage node operators, and what is the, I think we did cover this already, but anyway, we'll go ahead and finish. What is the mechanism of rewards for operators and stakers who stake MPC, make transactions, and froze ETH in the wallet? 2, previously only contributors were able to run a node. Am I correct that now anyone can run a node as it was proclaimed in the last post on Medium? 3, is there any data or rating on nodes, or maybe some mechanism where I can see state and status of the node and react if something goes wrong? It would be very useful and user friendly. And last of all, best of luck to the project and happy mainnet launch.
I'll kind of go backwards in that one. The last
Okay,
part of the
great.
question is you can search the wallet. Well, actually, sorry, you can see all the validators and their public key on mpcexplorer.com. So then you could look into each one, and we'll continue to build that site out with more stats for each node operator, each wallet. Then the second part was, what was the
Can
second part?
anyone run a node as it was proclaimed in the last post on Medium?
Yeah, what we meant by that is anyone can register their node now if they have the tokens. It's not that anyone can run a node without tokens. You do need to have the stake. So that was, yeah.
Okay, and that some Ether is required for gas. Given fluctuations, it's a bit risky. What?
As for the gas and the fluctuations, I mean, your risk is how much you import into the network. If you're only using small amounts, you don't need to send too much ETH into your wallets. So, and you can withdraw back to the mainnet as well.
We're also at the same time trying to build tools that will allow you guys to better understand how your node is currently working and how it's perceived in the network. So we're also trying to build tools on that, because we are going to need the same tools when we're trying to update and extend the community of the active node operators.
Thank you. So next questions come, the next question comes from Leviathan. I invested 34,000 USD with the intention to run a ZK node. Recall that minimum investment for ZK node is 25,000 USD. Now all my tokens are put on locked staking for 4 years. Will I get the excess of my tokens removed from locked staking and transferred to my KYC Partisia address?
It's a bit of a disorganized question, so let me try to break it down. When we update the KYC portal, you'll be able to direct how many of your total tokens you purchased you want to be in your node account versus your holding account. You can stake any amount of your locked tokens. Just because your tokens are locked and not transmittable doesn't mean you can't stake them. So staking is always available. So it doesn't have anything to do with your tokens being locked. So you can stake whatever amount of your total tokens. But just pay close attention when we update the KYC portal so that you can then choose how many tokens you want in each wallet.
Okay, thank you. So another question from Justin. Can a person operate more than one node?
No.
Except they can have 3 different kinds of nodes, right? They could have one ZK node, one Oracle node, one Baker node.
Yeah. And the main reason, just to elaborate on the thinking behind this, I like to use EOS as an example because they did some things right and some things the wheels completely fell off. So with completely open delegating proof of stake, what you see happen in these networks is you get little crypto mafias that basically come together and vote each other in and consolidate the network amongst, a very small amount of hands. So with EOS, we saw a Chinese segment of the node operator economy really come together and sort of, I don't know, bribing has some negative connotations, but essentially a lot of bribery started happening and votes were being issued for each other and for friends only. And so you had this consolidation where now it's kind of an open secret that, half of those nodes at the top of the committee are owned by one power organization. So with proof of trust, the idea is if we know that, you know, each node is unique and it's not one big powerhouse running, you know, half of the entire node network, we have more decentralization. So although it's not as anonymous and completely and not typical of what we've seen from like, you know, Ethereum or Bitcoin, where anyone can just fire up their hardware, it is a bit different, but we think in the long run, it's a more decentralized approach. So that's the thinking there, and I think there's going to be more integrity in the network based on this.
Okay, thanks, Brian. So last question in this little section about the requirements of being a node operator. This one comes from RBH, Red Pyramid. So do we need Partisia tokens for running nodes? I heard it will be collateral. If yes, then what will be the minimum tokens required? Because at 7.25% tokens get unlocked and we sell them.
So this one, we can skip it. We can skip this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so last two questions are technical questions. Is it possible to receive an email when one node is not signing? And that way we can react quicker.
That was a cool suggestion. Let's see what Peter says.
No, I'm not going to send out emails. If you are a member of the current network, and if you are following the Discord channel, we are trying to flag whoever is not producing correctly, and then we are trying to make sure that people are being notified about it. Especially for the newcomers, it's going to be important to make sure that these guys are actually producing. So we will try to do some manual or surveillance, but don't rest on your laurels. Check. There is a number of things that you can see in the support chat where you can see the statuses and there's metrics and there's all sorts of different things where you get an idea of whether or not your node is doing the work that it's supposed to do. You have to understand a bit of the nitty-gritty details, but your own node actually have some REST endpoints where you can get information about what it's doing and how much it's been signing lately.
Okay, thanks for that.
And as Pitbull alluded to in the chat, that is sort of one responsibility of the node operator themselves. You can set up your own monitoring tools.
All right, and the very last question before we open it up to everybody on the call, does the rotating period, and this one comes from Pitbull as well, does the rotating period where each node handles the next 100 blocks make PBC vulnerable, the Partisia blockchain vulnerable to DDoS attacks in the same way that Solana appears to be?
I'd rather say no, it does not, but that might be something that will haunt me for years to come. The 100 blocks should, if there's actually activity, only be a few minutes. So it shouldn't be a point where people should be able to sort of DDoS and flood that particular node. And in the case of an actual malicious DDoS attack, then we need to figure out how to make sure that the node operators and the network that they're connecting to themselves is not exposed to the public part of the network. So there's different ways of handling it that the external masses can be only access the blockchain through something called reader node, so that node can, so we can proxy the actual blockchain producers behind some reader nodes. So there's some mechanisms in that. I think also the tale about why other chains are vulnerable and susceptible to DDoS attacks is slightly more complicated. Rather not go into a detailed analysis without actually understanding it perfectly in detail myself. But so my initial response would be no, we're not vulnerable, but I would prefer to have the software battle tested and proven like that.
Okay, thanks, Peter. So I'm noticing that there are quite a few questions from the chat. It looks like Brian's answered most of them, but it looks like maybe the last ones. Brian, why don't you go through the ones you have not yet answered?
Yeah, the only ones that are left pending is a few people asked about just marketing and some marketing strategy. So this is a node operator call, so we can't spend too much time there, but I'll just give a brief overview real quick. We're coming up on the end here. So as you see, the Discord update just kind of came through today. So we're going to start funneling a lot of traffic there and sort of organizing the community in this channel. Since the beginning, there's been 3 core target market users for Partisia blockchain. Node operators is one. That was the first one. And that's where the project started. And the reason being, this is a very technical project. And with node operators like yourselves, you're the ones who make this all happen by making sure the infrastructure is running and decentralized. So that was the first target market of the project. And when selling this token, that's who we were selling to. So, you know, I think we already saw the committee jump to 128 now. There's already 263 members in the node operator chat. We haven't really even started pushing. So we should expect to see, you know, a few hundred nodes out of the gate, which went by our initial expectations. You know, we were just hoping to have maybe 100. We even set the bar a bit lower in some of our guaranteed deliverables internally. So we did really well there. So as you see in the Discord, we've got now a section for node operators to more specifically organize around and scale. In that fundraise period, which brought us to the 42.5 million, we did onboard some big players as well, like P2P.org, BNA Tech, which is a Swiss company, but they're Russian Bitcoin miners. I think they have 0.1% of all the Bitcoin hash rate is what they told us recently. So not the biggest, but obviously it's still a huge slice of a nice slice of a mega pie. So then the next target market was the developer community. So they didn't really buy tokens necessarily, but it's something that we need to really start to focus on as now that the tech is ready. I mean, we've tested deploying a few smart contracts this week. So there's a lot of targeting of developer communities. Discord is seeming to be a very fruitful opportunity in the current market. We've communicated with a few other servers who are willing to guaranteed push X amount of their users into our server with various promotions. So we'll go to the sorry, I'm reading your thing saying you don't like Discord for AMAs. Well, this is a Zoom call, so. But the, yeah, then, so there's 3 communities: node operators, developers, and then retail. So with retail, we actually managed to onboard, I think it's 40 KOLs into our pre-sale. So we actually do have a pretty strong, some strong names who've bought into the project that haven't really promoted yet. So we'll be leveraging them to start getting the word out across all their channels. You know, combined, they have several million followers, all crypto retail buyers and node operators or developers. So right in our 3 target markets. We also hadn't really announced the public sale yet. So we've been doing private sale and more specifically just targeting the node ops. So now as we kind of come out of this, it's going to be a bit different and a bit more intense. So we hired 9 moderators for this Discord because we plan to see tens of thousands of people joining. So there's going to be 24-hour coverage minus the weekends. We'll give the mods the weekends off. But right now they're going through training phases. As you can see in the different channels, we're starting to organize the information. So, you know, for example, become a validator on the Partisia community. You know, these might be retail people. If they want to know how to become a validator, we'll have the relevant links and info there so they can graduate their way into like a node operator status. There's a lot of training that it needs to still happen. The mods started today. They're not too active yet, but basically a lot of traffic funneling from other Discord servers, leveraging our influencers. Twitter's been a pretty big hit for us. We're at 141,000 now. They're giving us a custom emoji badge. At least they said so. So we'll see when that comes. That's kind of cool. So anyone on Twitter who hashtags MPC will probably see our emoji auto insert itself. Yeah, I mean, with marketing, there's also certain things you don't want to necessarily give away. But we have a big events roadshow schedule finalizing. we're hiring tons of new people. Jennifer joined at the beginning of this year to start sharpening up our communications and organization around that. So yeah, I think what I like to say is that the super hard part is building a blockchain that's going to compete with Solana and stay online and not go offline like Solana does. It's much harder to build a sharding protocol, which people like ETH 2.0 have been working on and still haven't managed to deploy. So now just getting the word out and hiring and staffing the right individuals to help scale this is becoming a much bigger priority. And we all know that. And so things are being organized and released, and on our terms and our own timelines. And so with the actual real product coming to market, it's exciting that we can start to turn these, pull these levers and really get the word out.
Thanks, Brian. So just a couple last questions before we close the call. And then hopefully we'll be able to let you guys do some talking here too, but it looks like a lot of people put their questions in the chat. Okay, so are we going to have Partisia's swag for the node operators?
Oh yeah, sure, of course.
Okay, I can take that one.
What we're gonna do is, we don't know when yet. Obviously, travel is a complete mess these days. But at some point, we're going to do hackathons and different events in person and have swag where people can show up. In the meantime, we can probably print some gear and send it out. I mean, I'm wearing our outdated hoodie with the old logo. So we'll make some new ones.
Okay, great. Yeah, and we'll have it with the new cool logo, all this and that. So what are the plans for doing regular AMA?
What I'm saying in the chat now is I'll coordinate with Jennifer. We've already started talking about this, about getting things more scheduled and just consistent. So, news to come in terms of maybe we run it once a month, like a tech update or something for the community.
Okay, so yeah, put that on the list of things to do. Okay, does anybody want to ask any questions out loud? If you do, just unmute yourself and go.
I'll see how this works. This is actually the most civil group I've ever witnessed on a Zoom call like this. So thanks, everyone. Looks like Pitbull's ready to go.
Yeah, actually, I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say thanks for doing this. I think it's been needed for quite a long time. And I think we had a lot of questions which you've gone through today. I'm looking forward to going through the slides later. And I just think you've done a good job today, and hopefully this won't be the last one.
It won't be the last one. And thank you, Pitbull. You were definitely a major contributor to this AMA. So we would like to say thanks to you as well. Anybody else? Okay, so if you do have other questions, just shoot them through Discord. We'll package all this up for you, give you a Q&A that basically covers everything nice and clean, concise, as well as the slide deck. And anybody else, Kurt, Brian, Peter, you want to say goodbye?
Bye, guys.
No, just say thank you for participating.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, and to the last comment, just before we go, Kurt is officially a GIF, which is a major project milestone. And so whoever made that, God bless you.
Yeah, guys, we need stickers. We need Telegram stickers. So send those through. If you make us Telegram stickers, we'll be very happy.
Yeah.
Peter's
also,
up next.
Yeah, Peter, you're guaranteed to become a GIF, Peter. There's no way around that. But yeah, we'll upload this we're starting a YouTube channel to keep all our video content in one place. So this was recorded, so we will upload this to the YouTube, so you can send it around to any friends who may have missed it or who might be interested. So thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
And yeah, the slides will be posted to Discord also. Thanks.
Yeah.